Welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It's good to be in your presence, big brother.
Thank you.
You doing all right?
Doing good.
Good to be here with you, man.
And it's good to be here with you and with all of our viewers today.
Yeah, we reach 1.5 million. And so we're grateful that Real People, Real Voices is still around.
Yeah, and that's just on TV.
That's just on TV, not withstanding who we touch in the communities when we're moving. Yes. And because they do like us on Facebook.
Yeah, like us on Facebook. And you can also go to YouTube and put WHMB TV 40 in the search field and become a regular viewer on the YouTube. Yeah. So we hope that you will do that. I want to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, Lee Cossack and Crawley, who's been with us for a long time now. We pray that they will continue to be with us. Not only that, we have the Fervent Care Christian Academy. If your young child needs a fresh start, take them to Fervent Prayer. We have a brand new sponsor. Brand new. Marion County Public Health Department. They're talking about the Safe Sleep Program, and we want to push that throughout central Indiana.
So we're very grateful to God for what he has done. And speaking of what God has done, we got a great guest today. Pastor Bernie's going to be coming.
Yes, she's a sister who works behind the bars.
Literally.
Literally bar, not that kind of bar, but bars.
Oh yeah, you were right on point.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to be on point.
Yeah, you were on point. And served a lot of men and folks who are incarcerated.
Right, which is a very important ministry.
Yeah.
Very important ministry. Everybody needs a second chance, especially when we serve a second chance God.
Yeah. So we want to talk about that here in just a little bit. So I want you to stay with us. It's Real People, Real Voices. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we're joined by Pastor Bernie.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's a great show to be on.
That is what I hear.
Yes, it's a great show.
Thanks for being with us. You're the executive director from Mercy Unleashed.
I am.
Tell us about that.
Mercy Unleashed is a prison ministry, and what we do is we seek out believers who are behind bars. Many prison ministries go in and they evangelize, and then they leave, and they leave these men and women who are new believers, but they don't know what to do next. And so what Mercy Unleashed does is we go inside, we seek out the new believers or existing believers, and we equip them to become leaders inside and to become disciples who then will make new disciples. 2 Timothy 2:2 tells us that we're not just to teach the gospel to people, but to teach them, the people that we know will then turn around and teach others. So that's what we do.
And how long have you been doing this?
Gosh, we've been doing it about 6 months. We're a relatively new ministry, but we are on fire, and we are having so much fun meeting these guys and these ladies and being with them inside and learning their stories. You know, you have talked about a second chance God, and our prison system, we're supposed to go in there and be rehabilitated, be redeemed. Supposed to. Yeah. And we all know that doesn't happen.
In many cases.
In many cases, that doesn't happen. Right. But our God always does that.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is help these people, the men and women, to rise up and take control and take authority under the name of Jesus and to teach others.
You know, I looked at one of your penetrating points here, and you said the prison is a missionary field.
It is.
Could you explain what you mean by an system of incarceration being a missionary field?
Absolutely. We think of mission fields as having to leave the United States, go to China, go to Russia, and seek out people to tell them about the gospel. We have a variety inside our prison system. In our prison system in the United States, we have 2.3 million people incarcerated. That's 2.3 million people who are sitting there waiting to be seen.
Yeah, highest in the world.
Highest in the world. Yeah. Absolutely highest in the world, which is disturbing. but that's probably a whole nother show. But when we go in there, we've got all of these people, and they're hungry. And they know that they may or may not know about Christ, but they know they need hope. They're sitting there, and there's so much darkness. And our job is to love God, love people, and make Jesus famous wherever we go. And when we go in there, we bring hope. You know, I don't claim to take Jesus into the prison system. He is already there. Right. He is there, and the people who love him, there are people in there already who are there. What I claim to do is to equip the guys that are in there to continue spreading that light. But boy, there's just so many people sitting in there that just need hope.
How many are attached to your ministry?
We have about 15 full-time volunteers. And so what happens is when we go in to teach, we do a 6 to 8 week class, and we go in and we teach discipleship. And I break the guys or ladies up into small groups, and then I sit a volunteer with each one of their groups, and they're trained. They're trained to become leaders. And we do that for several weeks, and then ultimately these guys will then become leaders and go out and create their own discipleship groups within the prison system. So we just, the goal is to do that within the prisons, and then ultimately get to all 17 locations within the state of Indiana. We have 17 prisons in the state of Indiana.
And that's a lot.
That's a lot.
But you also talk about the process of your ministry. There's different stages of it.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, Mercy Unleashed is a 3-phase ministry. We are currently on phase 1, which is going on the inside and equipping the incarcerated, the offenders, to become leaders. The second phase is equipping the local church on the outside to receive these men and women when they come out. You know, we can work all day long with the guys on the inside, teach them, equip them, give them all the tools they need, but when they come out of there and they're given their $50 and the clothes on their back, if they don't have a community that's ready to receive them, they're going to be right back where they started. So they need that support. We have to equip the local church and to provide a place for them. So that's phase 2. And then phase 3 is something I call fusion. And fusion is bringing all of this together with the family. Wouldn't it be awesome if while the prisoners are on the inside, they're learning how to become, especially the men, spiritual leaders of their homes? And so while they're learning that, they're then ministering to their wives, their girlfriends, their parents, their children who are on the outside. And it all comes together, and we've got kids that are learning the foundation. You know, prison is a generational disease. I can't tell you how many men I've met who are in there with a brother or their father or an uncle or their kids already in the juvenile system. And if we can reach these families when they're still young and relatively doing well, you know, a little sketchy because it's hard if dad or mom's in prison, but if we can get in there and help them, then I think it could be culture changing. I really do.
So in phase 1, what are you seeing so far with regard to these men?
Well, what I'm seeing so far is hunger. They are hungry for hope. And Jesus is hope. So when I go in there, you know, there's a persona that goes along with the inmate where they're big and bad and mean. And, you know, I haven't run into that. What I run into are men and women who couldn't be more blessed to have us in there talking to them. And they talk to us about their kids. Most of the guys that are in prison, they've got kids, several kids. And, you know, you talk to them about the situation they're in while they're in prison. And the first thing they say is, I want better for my kids. So you teach them. And what I try to tell people is if we have drug dealers, drug cartels who are making multi-million dollars running them inside solitary confinement in the hardest prisons in the United States, surely our God, who is so big and mighty, can use these men to be spiritual leaders of their homes from inside cells. Surely he can do that. Our God is big.
Question. One of your concerns is in your 3-pronged ministry.
Yes.
Is to make sure you can recruit more minority men and women.
Yes.
And I think I'm aware of what you're talking about, but make it plain to our audience.
Well, to make it plain, I'm white. A lot of the people who are incarcerated,
No.
I know, right? I'm like the
Yes.
whitest woman you'll ever meet.
You're kidding me.
I know. But a lot of the people who are incarcerated are people of color. They're minorities. And you know, I can stand up there all day talking to them, and I can bring in women and men who look like me, and we can stand up there and we can talk to them. But you know, we're not from their neighborhood. We need men, strong men of God, who are willing to come in and mentor the minorities and show them that they can be strong men of God.
So most of your sessions, your prayer meetings, are mostly minorities.
Yes, yes.
There's not much diversity that you've seen.
Not, well, you know, not in comparison to the rest of the world. It's amazing to me how colorful the prison system is on the inside, how many minorities there are compared to white people. And it's abnormally, the ratio is abnormal.
And that's what you alluded to, perhaps another show. So perhaps we'll have you back
That would be
to
great.
talk about that too.
Yes, I would love that.
You've
Yeah.
been a great guest.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank
All
you.
right.
We'll be back after this. Welcome back. We're joined by Felicia Brewer. She is the senior consultant and president of Brewer and Associates.
Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for all the good work that you've done helping organizations in Indianapolis and in other places to gain resources to help people.
Thank you.
And as we understand it, you're taking your business to a national level. Talk to us about that.
Yes. About 3 years ago, God had planted a seed for me to take the company national. So I've been working, just putting different steps, meeting with different people, looking at different stakeholders in different areas to see what exactly that looked like. Part of that was developing a curriculum, and this curriculum is called capacity building from concept to execution.
For nonprofits.
Yes, for nonprofits. Oh my gosh. And it's really designed based on all of my years of experience, because I've been training for 25 years. I started out in education. But when I found, just in spending really like the last maybe 10 years of doing training, there was just certain needs and certain information that was not really being made available to the folks that are accessing me. And I serve organizations with from $0 all the way up to $10 million, which sounds like a lot, but typically those that are on the larger scale are larger entities with really limited resources for things that I do.
So with the national program and helping people expand their capacity, let's talk about, because you have a much better purview where this is concerned, a lot of times grant money is left on the table. And a lot of times we say, well, there's no money, but we find that perhaps there is money, we just don't know how to get to it, and you help solve that problem.
I do. And it's been a minute since I've looked at the statistic, but I do know like back in 2017, there was close to $1.2 trillion
Left on the table.
left on the table, and that's across the board of funding. That's federal, state, and so forth. Yeah.
Ms. Brewer, would you believe that the qualifications are so, the bureaucracy of it now is so, tell us about the bureaucracy and approval. Let me just say it that way. I think that would
Okay.
be about the best way to say it. The bureaucracy which people have to deal with in order to be approved for grant dollars.
Okay, well, I don't like the word bureaucracy.
Okay.
So let's say best practices.
Okay.
But yeah, there are very there's a lot of strengths that funders are looking for, because at the end of the day, you got to remember they're asking you to be stewards of their money.
Right.
So they want to make sure that one, you're doing that what you say that you're going to do, but then also that you have the capacity to execute what you say you're going to do. And I'm talking primarily from a grant perspective. But even as a donor, if I give, for example, money for a capital campaign, I want to make sure that that money is going to go specifically to what you've requested from me. And if I understood your question correctly, as far as how do you get past the bureaucracy, in using your words, it's really making sure that you have your ducks in a row. And so that you got to make sure that you do have finances, that you do get, you may not necessarily have to have an audited financial statement, but at least have an accountant review it. And there's a different cost in that, but that still satisfies what funders are looking for. You certainly have to have, strong board, you got to have strong programs, goals and objectives, and you got to make sure that when you're evaluating your programs, that you're clear on what you're evaluating. And that's a big challenge that I find with organizations. It's like, they say we're going to do this, but they don't have the right tools in place to measure that. So you can't say, well, let me say that differently. You can say I served, 3,000 kids, okay, because those are numbers. But funders are looking at, what is the impact that you have? So I would say, maybe in the last 5 to 7 years, I think prior to that, the funders looked at more what I call transactional activities. I think now they're looking for more transformational. So how are you impacting that child's life? Whether that child is a victim of bullying or whether it's his academics, his home life, whatever that looks like, that's what we want to know. Because if you are positively impacting that child, then we know the success in life for that child is much greater.
So when it comes to being able to successfully get grant money, what would be the top 2 things you would tell our viewers who perhaps have programs who want to get more funding, that say these are the 2 things, if you do this, you increase your chances?
I would say you would have to have strong programming. And then the other one, I think you have to have strong relationships. And in strong relationships is twofold. One, you have to have a relationship with the funder, because, funders don't want to give to people that they don't know. Again, they want to make sure that you're going to be a good steward of their money, and that requires relationship building. And then I think also your community partners, because we can't operate in a silo. So whether, if you're, for example, a child care center, you have an intergenerational program. So now you're looking at those that are, maybe retired educators. So now we're looking at how can you increase the readiness for a Head Start, for example. So in looking at those 2 things, if you look at relationships, number 1, and then I think 2 is the strong programming, then you have a very high probability of being successful. And if actually there's a third of that, I think being able to communicate your story to the stakeholders. Most folks do not do very well at communicating their story. And
Why is that?
it's a great question.
I mean, I'm listening
I
at
think it's
and Jackson asked a great question. What are the 1 or 2 relationships? When we look at some of the things that go on around the city of Indianapolis, with vendors, there are some people who would love to be vendors with the city of Indianapolis, but they don't have the relationship. Okay, and so they'll never get a chance.
And would perhaps make a good vendor.
And possibly would be a good vendor. They don't get the chance. And so I hear this all the time, relationship. So others, because they don't get a chance to establish those relationships, because they don't qualify for the relationship, then they don't get a chance to perform. And then you made a statement about the idea of presenting, they don't tell their story well. And I was just wondering, if they don't get a chance to perform, how are they going to develop a story?
Well,
that's just my take.
I think the story has to, you have to have one in the beginning,
I
And then
agree.
it's going to evolve.
Right.
You know, as you strengthen your organization or your programs, then the story is going to change because now we have some success that we can share with the community. We can talk about what the impact that our program is having. And so many of us, we don't really, because we don't have the right tools in place, we're not clear on what we're supposed to be measuring. It's hard to tell the story. But even just taking the time to write down what the story is. There's a document that I do. It's called a case for support,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's an organization story. It's a management tool, but it's also a grant writing tool. So it has your mission, your vision, description of your programs, evaluation, and so forth. But what it does is provides that consistent language for anybody to tell the story. And you know, it's not a document that sits on the shelf, but it is a document that provides a basis of who you are, why you exist, and whom you serve, which is your mission statement.
Very well put,
Thank you.
and you've been a great guest today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to encourage you to reach out to Brewer and Associates, who's going national now,
Yes.
but still has time for you. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm your executive producer, Faith McKinney.
Thank you all for the extraordinary job that you do.
Thank you for the extraordinary job you do, the guys that are behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This is a great show. People in Indianapolis are breaking the door down trying to get on this show. And I tell you what, when you can get on this show, you're somebody in Central Indiana, period.
Amen.
And this is a great show. Faith, you do a great job.
Well, thank you.
And we're just happy to have you working with us. And Pastor Bernie, was that her?
Pastor Bernie.
Bernie,
Yeah.
she's in the prison ministry, and she says that she's a white woman,
She said that.
and she has
Needs more minority
she needs
people
more
to come
minorities. She needs more brothers to help her with this.
in. More specifically.
Yeah, she says that we go in, but we need some help with that area.
Yeah, well, her thing is the disproportionate number of minorities there.
right.
And there needs to be more folks to help out. So
That's right.
we got to do something about that.
And then the grants that are
Felicia Brewer.
over 1 trillion,
Over 1 trillion, and maybe we can get money to help develop programs to help Pastor Bernie
Hey.
to help the people
Sounds like a plan.
who are in the prison.
Right.
And we'll have to come back and talk about that.
Yeah.
So we hope that you'll come back and we can talk about that a little further. And go to that website of Pastor Bernie's ministry. We'll see you next time.